This is the process, right? This is the process we're all in. Developmentally, we start out completely narcissistic. Freud talked about it this way. And through a process of being held, being seen, being mirrored, being contained, our subtle field, for example, each organ in our subtle field individually has to be held, contained, mirrored. To the extent that happens, that subtle field, that chakra, that energy center, goes through a developmental process that not only brings more and more of the field that chakra develops functions as a filter. It functions as a coherent experience. It functions as an intensity, as a vibratory intensity, which brings a feeling of aliveness, a feeling of power, a feeling of pleasure, for example, or pain. And via that field, that particular chakra's field, we then that is now the organ by which we are experiencing that particular dimension. So, for example, the first chakra dimension, initially it's all just one undifferentiated dimension, but as your personal first chakra develops enough of a coherent field and enough of an intensified field, now you start to differentiate your field from out beyond your field. And you start to have an awareness of the first chakra world, the first chakra dimension. Depending on how intensified, how coherent, how developed your first chakra field is, you'll only be able to tolerate that much reality. And if you don't have a developed enough first chakra, then you'll experience yourself and other and world in ways that aren't accurate. You'll merge with physical objects, you'll merge with other, you'll project onto other, you'll distort the actual information that's coming in from world and from other, all because you got to protect your mind from the overwhelm.
Because anything you haven't been able to define or differentiate as other, you'll conflate with self, because that's the default state of the incoherent, underdeveloped field.
Totally. Yeah.
And that's what we're really turning away from. And kind of how you got into this, what keeps us stuck. That we look away from things that seem too, like they're too much. And they're too much because we think that they're us.
And the idea with consciousness is that the truth is no occurrence in reality is going to destroy consciousness. That's the truth. If you're actually looking with the conscious mind, the truth is you are not vulnerable. You're not in danger. And any little bit that we get an experience of consciousness, we sense this. You know, we become capable of surviving, tolerating, allowing, accepting that which our ego mind said no way. That which literally, certain things can literally cause the ego mind to disorganize and experience insanity or terror. The conscious mind is not impacted that way. The conscious mind can not only look at it, but hold it, empathize with it, be in the midst of it, and maintain this benevolent or loving or positive, if you will, experience right in the midst of what seems to our egos as terrible occurrences. So that, again, the Christian idea of Christ walking in the darkness and being down here in the midst of all the suffering and holding the suffering of the world and being the shining light and, suffering with, but simultaneously somehow compassionately loving the dark, sinful, bad world. It all matches up when you look at it in that kind of symbolic way. Any little bit that any one of us attends, is present consciously, then we're doing that.
I think that's a good segue back to holding.
Yeah, so holding, the way I use that term, and the reason I try to talk about these different phases, if you will, of attending consciously. There's several reasons. And what they have to do with is how they impact what it is that you're consciously attending to. To witness something affects it in a certain way. And I won't even talk about how it affects the attender. If I just talk about the attendee for a minute. And if I talk about the attendee's mind, right? The way our psyches work, when we as an ego are consciously witnessed, we're impacted by that in a way that brings light, brings acceptance, brings truth. We are recognized as valid, as existent. And that's a profound thing. And I don't just mean us as, we can feel it as self, but it's also a particular thought we were having. If that gets witnessed, a particular feeling, a particular activity, when it's witnessed by someone, by anyone, it's like we're just desperate. Someone please witness me, or witness what I'm feeling, or witness what I'm trying to do or say. When we're witnessed, we feel recognized by not just that person, right? That's the like magic of this thing. Even if you want, you wish your spouse would do it, or you wish your parent would do it, or you wish your boss would do it, or you're wanting to be recognized by them, but to actually be witnessed, consciously witnessed, it's like it's all one consciousness. So whoever that light, so to speak, shines through, you're getting consciousness, you're getting light, you're being recognized spiritually, you're being recognized by God, and there's a felt sense of that. Whether it's coming from some stranger's conscious mind or a loved one's conscious mind. And to be recognized, to be witnessed, does a certain thing. To be held is an additional thing. Now we feel a joining, we feel a supportedness that's not just consciously recognizing, but that's actually sort of reaching a hand out and providing supportedness. So there's that experience. And our ego mind is impacted by that. The next need of the ego mind, and this is there's a developmental process to this stuff. We first need to be held, right? The infant doesn't need mirroring. Let me say it this way. The infant needs mirroring, but their mind needs mirroring. But the infant doesn't need first chakra mirroring. The infant needs first chakra holding. The infant isn't saying, hey, look at me do this. The infant isn't doing the, mom, watch this. The infant just needs to be held as far as their first chakra experience, their physical experience. But they get to a certain level of development, and now they don't they want holding, and I don't mean physically carrying the person, I mean conscious holding. But now they want to also be consciously reflected, which is a different activity. To consciously mirror is to reflect the experience, the ego experience of the other to that person's conscious mind, right? So if I just hold, for example, even physically, if you just hold someone's arm, let's say, or hold their hand, and you just focus on their hand, and you hold it in a very supportive, loving way, but you sort of don't recognize their mind at all. That's a different experience than if you hold their hand and then simultaneously, let's say, look them in the eye and recognize and provide this feedback loop that acknowledges this is your hand. That has a different impact. And it sounds corny, but we all need that. We need it on every level. That developmentally, that's how it works. The infant doesn't know what is their own hand. The infant doesn't know what is their own body. And if we don't get holding and then mirroring that acknowledges and gives us a feedback loop of what is our body and what is not, we don't develop, our field doesn't develop in a way that has us accurately experience that. Now, most of us know where our gross physical body ends, but we don't know where our first chakra ends. We don't know where our sexuality ends. We don't know what is our own sexuality versus what is the sexuality going on around us or in others. We don't know our own emotions from other people's emotions, our own thoughts from other people's thoughts. We do to a degree. And the more mature and individuated you are, right? Margaret Mahler's term, individuation. The more individuated you are, the more you accurately can discern you from not you. But again, one of the big insights with psychotherapy was that wow, we even as so-called healthy functioning adults are not very individuated. We're not very individuated. We're highly merged, narcissistic, defended egos. Again, growth, healing, performance, awakening, all has to do with how individuated are you. The individuation process, the meaning your mind recognizing what's me and what's not me, and the development of your chakras and the different states that correspond with that is what determines performance. It's what determines healing. It's what determines growth. So again, back to why not just talk about consciousness or mindfulness? Why separate it into these different activities or phases? It's because the ego needs different things at different times. Again, initially you need holding, and you can't mirroring at a certain phase of development of any particular chakra, any particular energy center. If you mirror too early, it just won't, it'll go unrecognized by that person's mind, because they're not really receptive to mirroring yet, but their system will respond to holding. And then at a certain level of development, their mind will start to recognize the mirroring, but the mirroring will be overwhelming. It'll be too much, too soon, because they need more holding and they need more development to happen in their system. They're not ready to have what they're doing be reflected back to them yet. They just need to have it be recognized and held and empathized with. And again, this goes for the physical body, the emotional body. It's an analogy I use is at a certain age, the kid draws a picture. They scribble on a piece of paper with a crayon, and the parents can look at the picture and it's like, wow, look at that, that's great. This picture's great. And the child is experiencing the picture as themselves. And so they have this positive experience. If the parents are saying the picture is good, then the child is experiencing, I am good because I am that picture, which sounds dumb, but that's how it's experienced. It's at a different age, a different developmental level to where the parents should start looking at the picture and recognizing the picture, but now also looking at the child and recognizing that a few different things. Yes, the child did that. And so giving credit to the child. Wow, you drew this picture. This picture is good. And by way of mirroring, one of the things that's happening is that what you're also saying is, but you aren't the picture. You're you. The picture is not subject. The picture is an object that you, the subject, drew. And of course, the parent's not saying these words to the 4-year-old or something. Yes, Johnny, that's a good picture, but remember, you're not the picture.
Not more than once, anyway.
Right. But that's ideally what would happen, right? Is that there's a mirroring, and so the person starts to recognize, oh, I'm a subject that can do good things, versus I am the thing that I do. Now, of course, we all become adults, so we didn't get enough of that, and so we all still think we are our deeds, we are the products that we make, and of course, it's just not true. So we experience subject via all kinds of things that aren't our actual subject. And so again, it's a mirroring causes disidentification with the thing. And it gets real profound when it's an emotion, for example. Right? The person is experiencing shame, let's say, or experiencing sadness. And their experience in that is, I am the shame. I am the badness. Just like they were at a certain developmental level, they thought, I am the picture. Now it's, I am this bad feeling. And it might just be a feeling. It might be an energetic vibe. It might be an imaginal form. So their mind may kind of turn it into a monster or some creature or some image, and the person literally experiences themselves as that terrible thing and suffers that horribly, right? And so, for example, imaginal work, when I'm doing imaginal work, I'm joining the client in an imaginal state, meaning we're peering into the imaginal realm, and we're looking at this imaginal creature that they feel they have become, or feel that they're discovering they always were, and they're horrified by it, they're tortured by it. But to just look away from it and try to deny it or repress it or run from it is not doable. You become aware there's no getting away from it. What needs to happen is for it to actually be seen, witnessed, recognized, and then it needs to be held, right? So witnessed and then held. If I can join with them in the experience of this thing, be it with them, and maintain a conscious holding, which means to provide support in that. That's all great. And it's like, okay, but what's really good is to provide mirroring, which means I'm recognizing there's this thing, there's this experience, there's this imaginal form. And the same goes for if it's just a thought or just an emotion or however they're experiencing, whatever kind of experience they're having. If I mirror it to their conscious mind, I'm recognizing them as distinct from that experience. It's this tricky thing because it's like you're holding up a mirror. You know, it's like if you have a mask on and then I hold up a mirror, you would think, oh my God, now you're seeing yourself as this mask. Right? In the ego realm, that's how it works. You hold up a mirror and it's like, oh my God, I didn't know I had that scary mask on. Now I am experiencing myself as this scary thing that the mask is portraying. Conscious mirroring does the opposite. Conscious mirroring holds up a mirror and really says, you are not this. You are not the thought you're having. You are not the feeling you're having. Whatever it is you think you are, when it gets consciously mirrored to you, a conscious mirror reflects your actual consciousness versus and distinct from whatever the ego experience is that you were identifying with. It's a profound thing. It's like the conscious mirror, which we can all, which we all do sometimes. The conscious mirror is like a magic mirror. It literally breaks the spell that the ego is under. It depossesses our egos of the imaginal form, the entity, the spirit, the emotion, the image, the concept that had a hold of us, that we were entangled in, embedded in, trapped in, thought was us. The conscious mirror is a magic mirror that disentangles, disidentifies. And so you'd think, well, how come we aren't just all walking around consciously mirroring? And why do we look away from a conscious mirror? Because we do. There's that reaction. When someone holds up a conscious mirror, initially, we have that ego experience of as though we're saying, no, you are this. And so the ego tries to get away from it. It's a process, this disentanglement, this disidentifying that the conscious mirror does. It doesn't, the ego can put up a fight. So the idea is if you can look in the conscious mirror long enough, it will result in disidentification. But initially, it's going to challenge you because it's going to make you look more directly at the thing than you were previously looking at it. Which again kind of goes back to the thing where whatever the thing is, whether it's what we're calling self or whether it's some event that we find horrifying, we don't want to look at it, even though consciously looking at it is what will ultimately free us of the torture of it. But it's a process to sit and consciously look at something that is initially frightening or threatening to us.
I think that's really good rundown on mirroring. Is there more you want to say about holding specifically? Because what you're saying is that it's really just an initial empathy exercise for someone who's feeling that they are the object or they are the feeling or the support in that overwhelming feeling. Yeah.
Conscious holding. If you're going to separate it out from mirroring, for example, or from witnessing, the conscious holding, like you said, the experience of the holding is empathy and support. And so the result that happens is an ability to tolerate. It's like that's if we were going to try to just put a word on what's the good thing that happens when something's consciously held, it's that it becomes more tolerable.
You sound a little cynical, or maybe I'm cynical. It sounds like a piece of a larger process that doesn't have an end to itself that's really helpful.
Yeah, I think I get what you're saying, and that is a tough. It's like that's the ego mind's sort of complaint, or Because it's like, wait, I don't, I want it fixed. I don't just want to like tolerate it forever. And so the ego thinks, well, no, then don't shine that light on it if it's just going to, sort of give it a space now for that to exist forever. It's like, I don't want this thing. I don't want this to happen. I don't want to feel this. So, let's shine light on it if that's going to change it, or if that's going to heal it, or if that's going to make it better somehow. But if it's just going to make it be sort of more visible, more there, then the ego mind, of course, protests. But again, this idea of tolerance, I guess maybe I'd add the word acceptance. Like, it doesn't just get tolerated bitterly or something. There's acceptance that happens.
It's part of a larger process where it gets incorporated. That initially it's seen as an invader when really it was there already. So tolerating or accepting is allowing to exist on the path to incorporating. But like I hear what you're saying, that it's a very necessary part of the process that takes a lot of time just to get to that point, because the ego reaction to it is so strong. It's like, if you're going to use the identification and disidentification, I guess by incorporating, I mean, in a way, re-identifying with, but in a larger context. But you have to disidentify first.
Yeah, and this idea of acceptance, it really works. It really kind of changed things for me when I started experiencing in this way, where it's like, oh, okay, I and everyone else have our ideas of how we wish the world was, how we wish life was, how we wish self was, how we wish others that we're in relationship to, how we wish they were. When we notice something that doesn't match that, we go to work in our minds to have it not be so, because it's disappointing. It's threatening. We don't even realize we're doing this usually. And so that's a very different process than recognizing, okay, this is so, and now what do we do? Does that mean now we don't want to be in relationship with this person? Does it mean, does it mean we change something? And sometimes, yes. Sometimes, yes, that's what it means. But denying it, repressing it, blocking it, doesn't make it not so. And it's like, well, you'd think, well, yeah, duh, of course. But it's like, yeah, but our ego mind operates in as though we can make it go away.
Right. That's a good explanation.
And of course, the general sort of spiritual faith idea, faith in life, faith in God, is that even when, from where we're looking and what we're recognizing as real, even when we look and go, man, I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like myself. I don't like my partner. I don't like my parent. I don't like life. I don't like humanity. That can make us, that we can quickly find ourselves in a desperate, hopeless place. When our perspective looks frickin' dark and we can't fool ourselves into thinking it's otherwise, it's awful. As I've said before, that is not a rare experience. And so I think acknowledging that experience, being conscious of and attending to that experience that hopeless, desperate, suicidal type of experience needs to not be run from, needs to not be denied, because it happens. There's no making it go away, but we can make it conscious. And that's a radical paradigm shift for most people. And most people don't face that experience intentionally. It's usually they find themselves there. That was certainly the case for me. I didn't read a book about awakening or growth or healing and decide, oh, okay, it sounds like you're supposed to go deep into this dark, hopeless, blank, terrible place, and then that's the doorway to the other side. And so I'm going to, do my exercises and practices to get me there. It was that it just happened via trauma. And I found myself in that place for an extended period of time. And eventually various things happened that I've talked about, obviously, that brought consciousness indeed right into that dark, hopeless, awful place. And instead of, oh, now I see the light versus the dark, the dark's gone and now there's light. It was like, oh, now I can see the dark consciously. So now I'm not afraid of it. Now I can tolerate it. Now I've accepted it. And so I'm not tortured by it the way I previously was. And so it's kind of this weird thing. And I'm talking about it like it's an absolute, but it was to a degree, but it was to a profound enough degree to where I feel like I have an understanding of how this stuff works to some degree. So now to be kind of cute about it, it's like when someone says, I want to kill myself. It's like, well, so do I. What's your point? Or I feel desperate and lost and hopeless. It's like, me too. Like, what about it? But, because I also feel all these other things. You're just looking at that dark thing. And yes, that dark thing's there. And when you look there, or when you look from there, it's pretty freaking awful. But instead of taking from there as some kind of truth or some kind of like self, I try to help people see that's just a particular lens to look from. And we all have that lens. But that lens isn't showing you the total picture. Which again is a big paradigm shift, even to try to talk about it that way. But again, it's like if you're trapped in a dark cave, there's a difference between knowing you're trapped in a dark cave and thinking that dark cave is the universe.
If you want to learn more about the Dimension Approach, please visit dimensionapproach.com.